God bless, and welcome to God's Healing Answer, a talk show created to encourage its listeners as we discuss relevant topics in a postmodern world. This show is created by Pastor Barbara Potop and is hosted by Pastor Mike Husley. Let's check in now with Pastor Mike as we discover that Jesus is God's healing answer.
Oh my goodness. Hello everybody. Welcome to God's Healing Answer here at KKVV Radio. As you can see, we're quite in a dither here. We have had heavy rain, and I'm actually was looking for Noah and his ark to float by. This is very unusual, and here comes Pastor Mike floating in. Our car turned into a boat on the way in, and oh my goodness, this is unusual for Las Vegas, Pastor Mike.
Well, we should have built an ark. We should have listened to the Lord. But that's what happens when you don't listen and you get soaking wet, and it's okay. It's okay. This is Las Vegas, and the monsoon is right on time.
Yeah, and rain and water in a desert is always welcome. And I had to custom make a raincoat today, as you can see from a green trash bag, and I think it's quite stylish. Forgive me if I excuse me for a moment as I take it off. And
I would say just keep it on, but if you want to take it off, you can. It's
kind of stuffy.
The monsoon doesn't work with our schedule, unfortunately, and I'm always disappointed every year when we don't have the monsoon. When we don't. Are you gonna be okay over there? There you go, boy. If you could see Mary Donald right now,
boy, that's a first.
You'd be able to see a sight here.
Oh my. Oh.
Well, we're just kind of getting ourselves all together, so be patient with us. And of course, we're glad to be here. And as we were driving in, I just thought, wow. I mean, this is commitment. Right?
Yeah.
Driving through all these puddles and everything.
I think we got brownie points from God today. We need them, though. We need brownie points.
But you know what? I did say the next time we are doing a show and it's outpouring outside, we might need to call it in. But we'll survive. And so we're glad we're here today, folks. We're glad you're here with us as well. And every topic is always worth tuning in for. And
that's why we're here.
Yeah, and this is a topic both you and I can relate to. Now, you and I are a little bit opposite when it comes to this topic, because this is really talking about not what's the word I'm looking for? Not
squandering.
Squandering. That's the word. Don't squander your gifts, your talents, or the calling that God has in your life.
And we think about the parable of the talents too.
Exactly, that's a great one.
And that we're actually held accountable.
Yep.
But the problem is, or the challenge is, discovering where and what those are in our life.
Right.
It's not always an apparent gimme, and it has to be searched out. It has to be worked towards, and it has to be grabbed.
Yeah.
You have to reach for it, and you have to step out in faith to reach that point and to fulfill it.
You really can. It's there's a lot of regret there if you don't, look for what God is calling you to do in life, and that's career as well, calling, career. Your participation in ministry.
Right.
Okay? Think about how many people go on existing in life, but they don't really get engaged or involved in any kind of ministry.
Yeah.
I just don't know that God doesn't call everybody. I believe He calls everybody to something. And we just get so caught up and busy in life that we can neglect that. Now, what I was alluding to earlier is that not everybody's called to be a pastor. And so I think I'm pretty fortunate that I was chosen to be a pastor. That's pretty honorable.
Yes.
But not everybody's called to that. Not everybody can be a pastor. Some people need to be doctors. They need to be lawyers. They need to be working here, working there. Everybody's got to do something.
How true.
But we all have some kind of calling.
Absolutely.
Now, my calling is to be a minister, a pastor. Your calling wasn't that. Okay, but you have a calling on your life. And thank God you didn't squander it. You and I talked earlier about how, in my life, I felt like I was called at about 20, Well, I felt at 21 I really wanted to go into ministry, and then 25 I actually went into ministry. Okay, so that's young in life. And your story might be a little bit different to where you and I talked earlier. I want you to talk more about that. And today we're trying to emphasize, how do you figure it out?
Yes,
And,
yes,
and what are the
yes.
signs, and
That's
what's the
right.
process?
That's right,
And
yeah.
I think your story, and mine is too, but your story is really great. I'm going to let you go into that and just talk about how you feel it all started when you were a young girl. And that's some of the things people need to look at. If they
That's
don't
right.
know,
Yeah.
look back to when you were a
Yeah.
kid. Look back, what
Yeah.
were the things you liked? What was you
Right.
interested in? What is God planted
What are you good at?
on your heart?
What
Exactly.
are you good at? And if you're a parent or a grandparent, you need to help your grandchildren, your nieces and your nephews, help them to discover
Yeah.
what they're good at, or what you perceive. Because when you speak that, let me tell you, that is very powerful, and those words will not leave their heart.
Yep.
And I know there were a couple of people in my life that spoke a couple of things to me, and they weren't particularly close. They weren't relatives, and they said something
Yeah.
that stuck with me
Yep.
just forever. Just kind of out of the blue, just, I think you can do this or something. And I was shocked, but those kinds of words, if you want to call it a prophecy,
Sure.
or if you just want to call it something else, you can.
It's an impression.
An impression,
And it's
yeah.
something that speaks real loud that affects you for a very long time, if not life.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
I want to make sure we mention that, yes, all that is positive. People need to be careful with the negative things they say, because that can affect people in the same way.
That's right.
So
That's right.
all of this
So
is probably
true.
for a different topic, but I want you to get into your story. If we have time, we'll get into my story. I know we're going to work in Moses, we're going to work in Deborah, we're going to work in Joshua and a few others.
God willing, we have the time.
Yep. And so before we do that, though, really fast, we'll make it fast today. We got to talk about the church that you and I minister from and at. And so we're at Trinity Life Center Church, and we're centrally located. And our major cross streets, really, so you can get an idea where we're at. Well, the stratosphere is where we're at. Right?
Yeah.
And so Sahara, Maryland is really kind of a cross street for us, but we're on 1000 East St. Louis, and we just love to highlight our church. Our senior pastor is Randy Greer, and I'm a children's pastor there, and a lot of other miscellaneous things.
Everything.
Yeah. And then Mary, of course, works specifically with the kids, and what a blessing you are. And so we're
Thank
on
you.
1000 East St. Louis. Our website is trinity-life.org, trinity-life.org.
Check us out.
Come check out our website, and we always say go to the children's drop down, and that's where you'll find us and what we
our
do.
program and everything. It's
the most
wonderful.
important ministry in these days and every day is a children's ministry,
Well,
of course.
train them up young,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
they'll stick with it
Yep.
and avoid a lot of problems.
So check us out, and then Mary, let's go right into your story as how where you're at today and where it came from, and how did you know that? How did you know what you wanted to do?
Yeah.
In the ministry.
Well, my story is a little like, I feel like Moses, because it's taken me, I'm 75, and it took me probably 60 plus years to come to the point where I feel like I'm doing what God wants me to do. I came from a family where my parents weren't very social. They were kind of, I would say, almost backward, and they were very private people, and I was the only girl in the family for the most part. I had a younger sister later on, but I had no self-esteem, and I just didn't feel I could do anything other than maybe study at school, and I had no idea what I wanted to be. But I did know that at a young age, I liked teachers. I liked to hang around with teachers. I liked to help teachers, and so I used to bring extra mimeograph papers home.
And what's a mimeograph?
It's a copy. It's a different way of copy. And a copied paper. They had extras, and I would play school with my younger brothers and sisters. But when I got to be of age where I would select that career, I didn't have any self-confidence in myself. There was no way if I went to school I could actually do the job, and I knew it. I could not deal with children. I could not stand up in front of a classroom and talk. I could not deal with the parents, and so I let that go. But I did know at a young age that my primary calling was to minister to those who minister to others. And the Lord made that very clear in my heart at a young age. And when I got older, I was really shown the picture, I guess internally, of Moses when he was fighting, I'm not sure what battle it was, but as long as he had his hands held high, the Israelites were winning, but his arms got tired. And so they were kind of, he put them down on his side, and as soon as he did, then the Israelites would start losing. And so Aaron and her, H-U-R, and I like to kind of spell it sometimes H-E-R, but Aaron and her came alongside, and they had to hold up Moses' arm so that the Israelites would win the battle. And so I always have that picture of holding someone's arm. I'm an arm holder. And so like with you in the ministry, I feel that I like to think that I hold up at least one of your arms.
Oh, you do. All the time. I mean, because of what you do, I enjoy ministry more. Ministry is more enjoyable. I hope listeners are kind of hearing that, because that's what volunteers can do for pastors. If you want your pastor to stick around for a while, you need to run alongside them and do whatever you can to serve them, help them. Because
that's how they do their best.
Yeah.
If we need to free them up from some of the lesser things, so they can really concentrate on what they do as a pastor.
Yeah. So as a young girl, you started to feel a passion for potentially teaching, and you had a hunger for it. Yeah. So those are things that people can look at.
Right.
Wherever you're at in life right now, you need to kind of look back at what did you love as a kid? Was there things you loved as a kid? And that may not ring true for everybody, but it did for you. But they do have to look at different things in their life to find out, hey, what is God calling me to? Of course, prayer is a huge thing as well. So tell a little bit more about your story, Sarah. As a kid, you felt that. I know when you went to church, I remember you telling me that there was like 3 things that someone highlighted that helped you understand what life is all about.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Love
well,
God,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Know
okay.
God, love
okay.
God, serve God.
Yeah. Well, very close. So when I went to first grade, I went to a Catholic school, and of course religion. They taught the course that was called religion, and it was about God.
Sure.
And I, for some reason, was very interested in what this teacher might have to tell me about this invisible being called God, that I knew he was powerful, he was good, and that he loved me, but I didn't know anything else. And so they had kind of like catechism questions, and we had to learn the answers. And so the very first one that we had to learn was who is God? Or no, who made you? Who made you was the first question. It was kind of easy. Yeah. God made me. So that was the first thing. And then the second question was astounding. It was, why did God make you? Well, asking a little first grader that's like 7 years old to answer a question, why did God make you? I mean, I needed to know the answer to that. I was very curious. And the answer was brilliant. God made you to know him, to love him, and to serve him.
I love it.
And I had to memorize that, and it went straight to my heart, and it was tattooed on my heart. And so to know God...
So you do have a tattoo.
Well, I do. And to know God, I didn't know how I was going to know someone that was invisible. Yeah. And that was going to be a process. And to love God, I had to kind of know him. Okay, but to serve God, I think I could kind of figure that one out. I would just look around and just help people, and that was serving God. So it was a life mission, and I got it from the get-go at 7 years old.
All right, so let's jump a little bit. Let's fast forward just a little bit, because as a kid there was this passion, and that's really great, because God put it on your heart. It wasn't something that you just built yourself.
No.
But God put something on your heart, and you started to kind of look at it, think about it. But a lot of time passed, and you didn't do anything about it. Do you feel that? Is that accurate?
Yeah. I just felt that I missed the boat, and I just wasn't. I will say that I was extremely socially retarded all through until I was 40 or something.
Wow.
I was just socially retarded, and
so I
was just incapable of doing.
Would you call that being shy?
Yes.
Okay.
Very, very low self-esteem.
Okay.
Very low
All right.
self-esteem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. You needed someone in your life to really encourage you.
Yeah, yes,
you didn't
right.
have it.
And that's why the gift of encouragement is so important.
Okay.
And when words of life were spoken to me,
Okay.
From time to time, it just took root and just grew up overnight.
So I think
it's amazing.
I think it's important that our listeners understand, and I'm learning today too, that man, we got to really inspire people around us. When we see good things
That's
in people,
right. You better
we need
believe
to
it.
say something.
You got to say something. You see it, you say it. That's my. That's my
I need to
motto.
do that more with my own kids, and not just every so often, but when I see them do great things, hey, you did a great job there.
Right.
And you and I work with kids, so we need to do that more.
That's true.
Because
That's
that
true.
speaks into life. It plants a seed,
It
and
absolutely
who knows
does.
where that's going to direct people in their deciding, what is my calling in life, and what is God saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so all that played out in your life, but yet you said something about 40 years old, nothing really played out. I thought, didn't you say you went to school to maybe potentially be a teacher, or no?
I wanted to be a
Okay.
teacher, and in the 5th grade, they started asking you, and you started preparing. In high school, I had to, make a decision what I'm going to do with my life.
Yep.
And at one point, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And so when I was, I think, a senior year of high school, I went to a guidance counselor, and at that time they help you to decide what you're going to do because you're leaving the school.
Yeah.
And she said, well, what is it that you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be a doctor. And she said, a doctor? She said, you're a woman. And you're probably going to get married and have children, and it's just not a good idea, and you should. And I left there crying.
Wow.
And the dream died.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so that's why it's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I understand the practicality, back in that day and age, where there could be some truth to that.
Right.
But man, if God puts something on your heart, you have a passion and desire, that's worth taking to prayer, really thinking about. There's wisdom in the counsel of many, so we don't want to listen to one person.
Yeah, true.
So anybody listening out there today, if anyone gives you negative feedback, negative.
Get a second opinion.
Yes, because I always say that negative information is information.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it's totally it's that it's all the information. So that's unfortunate that played out for you in that way.
I think what I would like to she was true. It was true to a certain extent, but what she should have said is that's a wonderful objective and all. But maybe you need to start with nursing and see how it goes and work your way up.
And she didn't say that.
No, she didn't. She just and she said this. This is what she said to me. She said, I wanted to be a scuba diver, but I have asthma, so I couldn't do that either. I mean, wow. She should have been fired.
They should have took the word guidance out of her title.
Holy mackerel.
And maybe even counsel her out.
Yeah, she needed counseling, actually.
Oh, gosh.
But anyways, it's okay because God used it, and I really don't think that was the route that I was supposed to go anyway.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
the
help
Lord's in
people.
control,
I wanted to
right?
help people, and I thought that was what I was going to do.
Okay, all right. So all that plays out, and then, but tell us how you ended up getting involved in church work. And then you and I just had conversation where you were talking about, you're talking about being a teacher, and I thought, why in the world aren't you teaching in kids' church?
Well,
So,
you are.
Well,
you got
know.
it covered.
Yep. The problem is we sell people short. I tend to do that. So what I should have been doing is pulling you in and saying, hey, I see a lot of potential in you. You're doing this, but how about this?
Yeah.
And I'm not good at that. And so I learned to encourage people, maybe even press people more and pull the goodness out of them.
Yeah, it's good, good, yeah.
And so with you, tell us a little bit about how you got involved in ministry.
Okay, good.
6 minutes left on our show, so I don't
can
know if
talk
you want to
fast.
get into some other things.
Well, let's see, since we're going this route.
All right.
So, I wanted to, like I said, to know God, to love God, and to serve God. Well, that serving thing just really started to bloom. And so all through my life, wherever I went, I would try to help. I would try to serve. I would look for opportunities to hold somebody's hand up and be there side of them to help them through or to build them up or to enhance what they're doing. And so through various scenarios in different places and stuff, I began to build my expertise, if you will. And God would bring different people in different and with different expertise, and that they would speak into my life. Hey, I'd see this, or you have this, or whatever. And I just began to be built up, if you will, by the body of Christ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've always been a diamond, and
Thank you.
and kind of in the rough, but just you stand out a lot, and you get involved in a lot of different ministries. And I want to encourage our listeners that way to get yourself involved, find places where you can help out. There's no easy way to do it other than step up and step out.
Yeah.
And I always tell people too, if you find ministries in your church that look like they're lacking.
That's right.
Then be a part of it and help it get better.
And if you don't have a ministry, doggone it, start one, because I've done that. I started the ministry, the funeral ministry.
Yeah.
And because I seen that it wasn't.
It was lacking.
It was lacking.
Right.
And so I asked that and started that up, and if you. A lot of times the church might need special cleaning and projects that the maintenance can't get to, or other people don't see it. You do it, and I always say this: if you see it, you be it.
Yeah.
You respond to it, because God is showing you and highlighting that for a reason. Hello.
I want to say most pastors are not great at maybe delegating or asking people, hey, can you do this for me and do that? Even myself, I'm not great at it because I feel like I'm putting people out. And I don't like to see people squander, squirm. Okay? Squirm when they're like, I don't know. Okay, whatever.
You're funny.
And
funny.
So we need to encourage people to go back to 30, 40 years ago when people knew that serving the church was something, it was almost a duty. And a responsibility.
It was the norm.
It was the norm.
Yeah, everybody did it.
And now the norm is to
fun.
sit back and do nothing.
Well,
or what? No, not do nothing, but sit back and wait for people to come and ask you to do it.
It's,
grab you by the hand and let's go serve God.
Yeah.
You don't agree, do you?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, it is a mystery.
I don't know.
Put that on. Yeah. Okay, we got 3 minutes. We're getting down to 0. I'm telling you, we need an hour show. We just can't afford it. Sorry, people. We need we need our donors to make some donations, okay? So that we can do an hour show and have more fun here. Mention one of our some biblical examples of what we're dealing with here today. People and their callings.
Yeah, because I wanted to highlight some of the people. I came up with some of my heroes in the old covenant. And Moses was one. He stepped up and he led the people of God, and he had a speech impediment, and he had no experience in that. But because God called him, he knew that he would be qualified. And that's the thing. If God calls you, he qualifies you. He doesn't call you to fail. He calls you to succeed.
Right.
Does anybody hear that?
Yep.
All right?
Yep.
And then Deborah is a favorite of mine, too, because she was a judge and a judge and a leader in Israel and a prophetess. And that was, I'm sure, highly unusual in that day and age. Yeah. But her leadership was so strong, she just kept going for it.
Yeah.
And she just they recognized her leadership and they needed it.
Well, that's a good point, because if you utilize your talents and
That's
people
right.
see your talents,
Yep.
That is going to propel you into even
that's a good
greater
word, propel.
opportunities.
Yeah, propel is a good word.
But you got to get out there and you got to do something.
Yeah, you have to take a risk.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to maybe not do as good as you wanted to do, and you have to keep on trying. How long did it take me to step up to the plate here in this show? I mean, you kept saying, Mary, you got to talk a little more, and I was like, all kinds of problems trying to do that, and now you can hardly shut me up.
It's true.
But it took me, I said, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing here. Why am I here? But I'm not going to quit unless somebody tells me to leave. And I just kept coming back and feeling like a failure. And I said, Lord, what's going on? Why am I here? And about the 5th show, all of a sudden I found my voice. I guess I just had to overcome the fear and realize it wasn't going to kill me.
Yeah. You had to put in the work, and you had to just stay faithful.
That's it.
And
face the giant is really what it is.
That's true.
You got to face your giants.
Yeah, you do, and you'll be blessed.
Oh boy.
And this is, I know this is one of your highlights of the week. And so we got about a minute left. We just want to encourage people today. I don't know if we got through with our to the listeners of our topic is, for me, it's just like, don't squander your gifts. Don't squander what God is calling you to. But you don't know what God's calling you to unless you do your homework, you pray,
that's right.
you seek God's face.
And you're responsible for that.
And you take a chance.
Yeah.
If you don't know what to do something.
Yeah, and that's just the guy with the talent, right? The one talent, he went out and he said, I ain't got nothing much. I'm just going to bury mine. Well, he's responsible for that.
Yeah.
It did not turn out well. And you cannot say you don't have talents, because everybody does. Everybody has a purpose.
Yeah.
And you're responsible and accountable to God, and it will just give you joy and satisfaction.
Yeah.
You've got to fulfill your life.
People, you need to trust us, because we've been in it now for 30, 40 years, and so we know what we're talking about.
We do,
so
yeah.
People, get out there. What the number one thing to do is to start praying about it. Lord, okay,
Amen.
I heard these folks on God's Healing Answer, and
I hope you're convicted today.
Yeah, a little bit, and then just start praying and start asking and start seeking and ask God, Lord, what do you got for me? But don't leave it there. I mean, you got to do something about it. You got to You got to take a step of faith.
That's it. You have to step out in faith.
Well, thank you guys for being tuned in today.
So
God
much,
bless
everybody.
you.
Thank you for joining us on this rainy day in Las Vegas.
Thank you for joining us today on God's Healing Answer. We would love to hear any feedback you may have by reaching out to us at godshealinganswer@gmail.com. And if you're looking for a Bible-based church, come join us at Trinity Life Center for a 10 a.m. service on Sundays at 1000 East St. Louis Avenue with our lead pastor, Randy Greer. We look forward to spending more time with you next week. So until then, know that Jesus is God's healing answer.